The Crimson Fleet's fatal mistake. Captain Sarah Chen stood before the massive viewing port of the UES horizon, watching distant stars twinkle like diamonds against the black canvas of space. 3 years into humanity's most ambitious deep space mission, they had ventured further from Earth than any human expedition before. The horizon carried 180 crew members, scientists, engineers, and explorers, all united by humanity's burning desire to discover what lay beyond their small corner of the galaxy. The ship itself represented the pinnacle of human engineering. Solar collectors powered advanced fusion reactors, while rotating habitat rings provided artificial gravity. Every system was designed for efficiency and reliability, built by humans who understood that in the void of space, simple solutions often worked better than complex ones. Sarah had commanded exploration vessels for 12 years, but nothing had prepared her for what they were about to encounter. Dr. James Park, the mission's chief xenobiologist, approached her with excitement, barely contained in his voice. His team had been analyzing strange energy signatures detected by their long-range sensors for the past 18 hours. The readings showed patterns too organized to be natural phenomena, too advanced to be from any known human technology. After decades of searching, humanity might finally have found proof that they were not alone in the universe. Sarah studied the sensor data with growing amazement. The energy signatures formed geometric patterns that stretched across several light years, suggesting a civilization with technology far beyond human capabilities. Massive structures moved in coordinated formations, their energy outputs dwarfing anything humanity had ever constructed. This was the moment every human had dreamed of since first looking up at the stars. The first contact protocols, developed by Earth's finest minds, called for caution, observation, and peaceful communication. Sarah ordered the horizon to maintain maximum distance while attempting to establish contact through mathematical sequences and universal constants. The crew worked with nervous excitement, knowing they were about to make history as humanity's first ambassadors to an alien civilization. The response came with shocking suddenness. Sleek vessels materialized around the horizon, as if emerging from empty space itself. Their hulls gleamed like polished crimson metal, and energy fields shimmered around each ship like protective auras. The alien fleet moved with precise coordination that spoke of advanced technology and military discipline. A voice filled the horizon's bridge, speaking in perfect English with tones that carried unmistakable authority and contempt. The aliens had somehow learned human language, demonstrating capabilities that both impressed and terrified Sarah's crew. This was not the peaceful first contact that humanity had hoped for. The being identified itself as war leader Kyrax of the Crimson Dominion. His words carried the weight of absolute authority as he explained that humanity had entered space claimed by an empire that spanned thousands of star systems. The Dominion had ruled this region of the galaxy for millennia, subjugating dozens of species and harvesting resources from countless worlds. Kyrax's demands were simple and brutal. Humanity would surrender immediately, provide the coordinates to all human colonies and Earth itself, and prepare for integration into the Dominion as a servant species. The alternative was immediate destruction. There would be no negotiation, no diplomatic solutions, only submission or death. Sarah attempted to explain that humans had no knowledge of dominion, territorial claims, and sought only peaceful exploration and trade. Her words were met with mocking laughter from the alien commander. Kyrax dismissed humanity as primitive mammals, whose opinions were irrelevant to the natural order of galactic civilization. The demonstration of Dominion power came without warning. Crimson energy beams lanced out from the alien vessels, striking the Horizon's shields with devastating force. The human ship's defensive systems absorbed most of the damage, but Sarah could see they were completely outmatched. The alien weapons operated on principles unknown to human science, manipulating energy in ways that seemed to violate physical laws. Sarah made the painful decision to retreat, knowing that the survival of her crew and the warning they carried back to Earth were more important than pride. The Horizon's engines pushed beyond safe limits as they fled toward the outer system, pursued by alien vessels that seemed to toy with them rather than deliver a finishing blow. The journey to the New Geneva colony took 6 agonizing hours. Sarah hoped to evacuate the civilian population before the Dominion forces arrived, but her worst fears were realized as they approached the mining settlement. Crimson ships had reached the colony first, and the systematic destruction had already begun. New Geneva had been home to 8,000 colonists, families who had traveled from Earth to build new lives among the asteroid fields. They were miners, engineers, teachers, and children, all defenseless against the alien assault. Sarah watched in horror as entire habitation modules exploded under focused energy attacks. The alien tactics were methodical and cruel. Rather than simply destroying the colony, Dominion forces were harvesting something from the human settlements. Energy extractors pulled power from every piece of human technology while recording devices analyzed their construction methods. The aliens were studying humanity even as they committed genocide. Chief Engineer Lisa Rodriguez worked frantically at her console, analyzing the energy patterns from the Dominion weapons and defenses. Her background in theoretical physics allowed her to recognize something that others had missed. The alien technology was entirely energy-based, relying on sophisticated field manipulation for everything from propulsion to defense. Sarah ordered the Horizon to attempt a rescue mission, knowing it was likely suicide but unable to abandon the colonists. They managed to save 3 escape pods containing 17 survivors before the alien forces noticed their intervention. The survivors' testimonies painted a horrifying picture of Dominion methods. The aliens had not simply attacked without warning. They had first studied the colony from a distance, learning human languages and customs. Then they had made the same demand for submission, followed by systematic elimination when the colonists refused. It was clear that the Dominion had developed a standard process for dealing with new species. Among the survivors was Dr. Michael Foster, a plasma physicist who had been studying stellar phenomena from the colony's research station. His data recordings contained detailed observations of how Dominion energy weapons interacted with various materials and fields. More importantly, he had noticed critical limitations in their technology. As the Horizon raced back toward Earth, carrying its precious cargo of survivors and intelligence, Sarah began to formulate the first elements of what would become humanity's survival strategy. The Dominion's overwhelming technological advantage came with inherent weaknesses that human ingenuity might be able to exploit. The aliens' reliance on energy-based systems meant they had never encountered purely kinetic weapons or electromagnetic interference on the scale that human technology could generate. Their shields were designed to deflect energy attacks, but had never been tested against solid projectiles moving at relativistic speeds. Sarah's crew worked round the clock during the return journey, analyzing every scrap of data about Dominion capabilities and weaknesses. They studied the aliens' predictable tactical formations, their centralized command structures, and their apparent inability to adapt quickly to unexpected situations. The most crucial discovery came from comparing the survivors' accounts with sensor readings from the battle. Dominion forces followed rigid protocols that prioritized efficiency over flexibility. They had conquered dozens of civilizations using the same basic strategies, never needing to develop alternatives because their technological superiority had always been overwhelming. But humanity was different. Human history was filled with examples of technological underdogs who had triumphed through creativity, determination, and willingness to use unconventional tactics. The same innovative spirit that had carried humans from caves to the stars would now be tested against an enemy that had never faced truly desperate opposition that as Earth appeared in the horizon's viewports after 3 months of desperate flight. Sarah knew that her species faced its greatest challenge. The Crimson Dominion commanded vast fleets and had the resources of thousands of worlds at their disposal. But they had made one crucial mistake in their arrogance. They had given humanity time to prepare, and humans had always been at their most dangerous when fighting for survival. The war for humanity's future was about to begin, and it would be fought not just with weapons and ships, but with the creativity and determination that defined the human species. The Dominion had conquered the galaxy through superior technology, but they were about to discover that sometimes the most primitive solutions were also the most effective. Sarah's report to Earth. Command would set in motion the greatest mobilization in human history, as every resource, every brilliant mind, and every innovative idea was focused on a single goal. Humanity would not go quietly into subjugation. They would fight, they would adapt, and they would find a way to turn the Dominion's own strength against them. Asterisk, when stars became Weapon 6, months after Captain Sarah Chen's desperate warning reached Earth, the Sol system buzzed with activity. Unlike anything in human history, orbital shipyards worked around the clock, converting everything from cargo haulers to luxury cruise ships into instruments of war. But the most important work was happening in the hidden research facility orbiting Jupiter's moon Europa, where Dr. Marcus Webb was attempting to weaponize the fundamental forces of the universe. Dr. Webb had spent his career studying stellar mechanics, the complex processes that made stars burn for billions of years. His theoretical work on controlled fusion reactions had powered humanity's expansion into space. But now he was exploring possibilities that bordered on science fiction. If his calculations were correct, humans could learn to manipulate stellar phenomena in ways that no known civilization had ever achieved. The breakthrough came from analyzing the Dominion's energy signatures, captured during their attack on New Geneva. The aliens' technology operated by tapping into stellar energy through sophisticated field manipulation, drawing power directly from stars across vast distances. This gave them seemingly unlimited energy, but also created a critical vulnerability that human minds were uniquely positioned to exploit. Webb's team had discovered that the Dominion's energy systems were incredibly efficient, but also incredibly dependent on stable electromagnetic conditions. Their ships, weapons, and even life support systems would fail catastrophically if exposed to certain types of electromagnetic interference. More importantly, the interference patterns needed were exactly the type generated by solar flares and stellar storms. Commander Alina Vasquez reviewed the tactical implications from the military perspective. If Webb's theories were correct, humans could turn stars themselves into weapons against the Dominion fleet. Solar storms that would barely affect human ships protected by simple conductive shielding would completely disable alien technology that had never been designed to operate in such conditions. The first test of Webb's stellar manipulation device took place in the empty Proxima Centauri system, far from any inhabited worlds. Using gravitational field generators positioned around the red dwarf star, Webb's team successfully triggered a controlled solar flare that generated an electromagnetic pulse across the entire system. The energy release was precisely calculated to disable Dominion-type technology while leaving human systems operational. News of the successful test reached Admiral Thomas Kane just as intelligence reports confirmed the approach of the Dominion's main invasion fleet. 300 Crimson vessels were advancing through space in perfect formation, following the same route that Kyrax had used months earlier. This time, they came not as scouts but as conquerors, bringing enough firepower to reduce Earth to radioactive ash. Kane's defensive strategy relied entirely on Webb's stellar weapon and humanity's ability to think beyond conventional military doctrine. The human fleet would not meet the Dominion in traditional space combat, where alien technology held overwhelming advantages. Instead, they would lure the enemy into carefully chosen positions where stars could be turned against them. The Battle of Titan's Edge began when Dominion forces entered the outer Sol system, confident that no primitive species could threaten their mighty fleet. War leader Kyrox commanded from his flagship, the Crimson Fist, surrounded by vessels that had conquered entire star systems without ever facing serious opposition. The aliens expected token resistance from human defensive platforms, followed by quick surrender when faced with overwhelming force. Commander Vasquez led the human fleet from the converted battlecruiser Defiance, knowing that her 47 ships faced impossible odds in any conventional engagement. But humanity had never fought conventionally when survival was at stake. Fleet included converted civilian vessels armed with kinetic weapons, swarms of automated missile platforms, and most importantly, Webb's stellar manipulation devices hidden throughout the system. The human strategy unfolded in carefully orchestrated stages designed to confuse and frustrate the aliens. Instead of forming traditional battle lines, human ships scattered throughout the asteroid belt, using hit-and-run tactics that prevented the Dominion from bringing their superior firepower to bear effectively. Every engagement was brief and violent, with human vessels disappearing into the chaotic environment of Jupiter's moons before alien forces could respond. Captain Chen, now commanding the rebuilt U.S. Horizon, specialized in these lightning raids. Her ship would emerge from behind an asteroid, launch a volley of kinetic projectiles at Dominion vessels, then disappear before return fire could be coordinated. The alien shields, designed to deflect energy weapons, were completely useless against solid metal moving at significant fractions of light speed. The psychological effect on Dominion forces was profound. They had never faced an enemy that refused to engage in honorable combat according to established galactic conventions. Human tactics seemed chaotic and primitive, yet they were proving surprisingly effective against ships that had never been damaged by enemy fire. Dr. Webb's moment came when the frustrated Dominion fleet moved into close formation around Jupiter, intending to use their combined firepower to sterilize every moon and asteroid that might hide human forces. The alien commander had unwittingly positioned his entire fleet within range of the stellar manipulation devices that Webb had spent months installing throughout the Jovian system. The activation sequence began with gravitational pulse generators hidden on Europa and Ganymede. These devices created precisely calculated disturbances in Jupiter's magnetic field, effects that would normally be too subtle to notice, but which cascaded into something much larger when combined with the solar manipulation systems positioned closer to the Sun. Webb's engineering team had learned to synchronize solar activity with planetary magnetic fields, creating a chain reaction of electromagnetic disturbances that swept through the entire Solar System like a tsunami of charged particles. The phenomenon was invisible to human observers, but devastating to any technology that relied on sophisticated energy field manipulation. The Dominion fleet went dark in seconds. 300 mighty warships became helpless hulks drifting through space as their power systems failed and their energy shields collapsed. Emergency lighting flickered briefly in alien corridors before backup systems also succumbed to the electromagnetic storm that human technology had survived with minimal damage. Commander Vasquez's fleet emerged from hiding to find the entire Dominion force defenseless. But instead of destroying the disabled ships, she followed humanity's carefully planned psychological warfare strategy. Human boarding parties carried medical supplies and food to alien crews trapped in their failing vessels, demonstrating the mercy that the Dominion had never shown to conquered species. The boarding operations revealed something unexpected about Dominion society. Many of the alien crew members were not the same species as war leader Kyrox, but representatives of dozens of different races, all serving the Crimson Dominion either through conquest or economic desperation. When they learned that humans offered freedom rather than enslavement, many aliens chose to abandon their former masters. Captain Chen led one of the boarding parties that reached the Crimson Fist, where she found Kyrox trapped in his disabled command center. The proud war leader who had dismissed humanity as primitive mammals now faced the reality that these supposedly inferior beings had developed weapons beyond his understanding. Chen offered him the same choice she gave all prisoners: surrender and live, or continue fighting and face the consequences. The intelligence gathered from captured Dominion vessels revealed the true scope of their empire and its fundamental weaknesses. The Crimson Dominion ruled through technological superiority and ruthless efficiency, but they had never developed the adaptability that came from facing true adversity. Every world they conquered had submitted quickly rather than force them to develop new tactics or technologies. Dr. Webb's stellar manipulation technology had given humanity a strategic advantage that could reshape galactic civilization. The ability to weaponize stars meant that any system with human-controlled stellar devices became a fortress that no conventional fleet could assault. More importantly, the technology could be used defensively to protect allied worlds without causing the mass destruction that characterized traditional warfare. The Liberation Campaign began within weeks of the Sol System victory. Human fleets, now reinforced by ships crewed by former Dominion subjects, spread throughout local space carrying Webb's stellar devices to systems under alien occupation. Each liberated world became another fortress in humanity's growing network of free systems. Commander Vasquez found herself leading joint operations with alien commanders who had once served the Dominion, but now fought for the freedom of their own species. The diversity of perspectives and capabilities made these combined fleets more effective than either humans or aliens could have been individually. The campaign's success created a cascade effect throughout Dominion space. As word spread that the supposedly invincible empire could be defeated, rebellions erupted on dozens of worlds. Species that had been enslaved for centuries suddenly saw hope for liberation, and many chose to fight rather than wait for rescue. The final confrontation came at Dominion Prime, the Empire's ancient capital world where billions of aliens had lived under Kyrex's people's rule for over 1,000 years. The planet was defended by massive orbital platforms and the remnants of the Crimson Fleet. But even these formidable defenses were useless against humanity's stellar weapons. Dr. Webb's most ambitious project transformed the system's binary stars into a weapon that could selectively disable enemy technology while leaving civilian infrastructure intact. The precision required was staggering. But human engineers had learned to calculate electromagnetic effects with accuracy that amazed even their alien allies. The liberation of Dominion Prime ended, not with destruction, but with celebration, as billions of beings experienced freedom for the first time in their lives. The Crimson Dominion, which had seemed invincible just months earlier, dissolved as its former subjects chose independence over continued subjugation. Captain Chen stood once again at the viewport of the UES horizon, but now she looked out at a galaxy transformed. Human stellar manipulation technology had broken the cycle of conquest and subjugation that had defined galactic civilization for millennia. In its place, a new alliance was emerging, built on the principles of freedom and cooperation that humanity had carried to the stars. The galaxy had learned that sometimes the most powerful weapons were not energy beams or kinetic projectiles, but the creativity and determination to imagine solutions that had never been tried before. Humanity had lit the stars themselves on fire, not to destroy, but to illuminate a path toward a better future for all intelligent life. The age of the Crimson Dominion was over. The age of the Stellar Alliance had begun, and it would be built on the foundation that no species should ever again face extinction simply because they dared to explore the infinite possibilities of the universe. Asterisk.